I don't know how to react, I don't do it.
Good afternoon. This is Familiarity saying good afternoon.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I trust that you're having a good afternoon, and I want to welcome you to everyone. Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today. I trust all is well, and we will talk a little bit about how to break this habit or this behavior of self-sabotage. And this is something that really has affected majority of us. We don't even realize that we are self-sabotaging ourselves. So today you're going to get a little bit of understanding, a little bit of knowledge, and on what self-sabotage is, so that we can be able to break this habit. So welcome everyone. I want to take a moment as well to congratulate all of you to taking the first step towards letting go of this self-destructive, self-sabotaging behavior of and moving forward into a happier and more fulfilling life. During our time together, we'll be exploring what self-sabotage is, and why we partake in it, and how to fight against this destructive behavior and form healthy habits instead. Should we get started? So, can you relate to the following? All right. All right. So, this self-sabotage behavior is said to be, when we create problems and when we interfere, when it begins to interfere with long-standing goals. The most common self-sabotaging behavior are procrastination, self-medication with drugs or alcohol, comfort eating, and interpersonal conflicts. While these acts may seem useful and comforting at the moment, they ultimately undermine us. And essentially, when we engage in them repeatedly, even if you are aware of your self sabotaging behavior, there is no guarantee that you will be able to overcome it. So, one moment. Slides are hold. Yes, there you go. All right. So, can you relate to any of the following? Yeah. You tend to focus on what's not working as opposed to what is. You tend to fear the future, worry a lot about what ifs or what might happen down the road. You feel like you have no value and you find challenges to recall accomplishments. You criticize yourself often and can't accept compliments. Sorry, you can't compare yourself to others consistently and feel bad for not measuring up. You chase away relationships. If you're in a relationship, you quickly find that in itself will be enough to disengage from that act. Still, if it is possible to overcome almost any form of self sabotage, and people do it every day. So, symptoms and habits of self sabotage. Under the umbrella of self sabotage is self destruction. Self destructive symptoms can arise all the time and are signs that we are trying to self sabotage. Here are a few examples and behaviors. Failing to act, having a negative, pessimistic, or self-defeating mindset. For example, I'm going to fail. I'm not good enough. Overeating, undereating, focused incompetent. You're focused on incompetence, portraying yourself as unintelligent and incapable. Most women are likely to be affected by this than men. What about when you feel like you have no purpose in life? For some of us, these behaviors are too familiar. For others, they might seem to be a bit out of reach. Up next, we will talk a little bit about specific actions and symptoms of self sabotage that lurk a bit further below the surface.
There, something like that, you know.
So we feel a lack of self-worth. There are a few main reasons that we participate in self-sabotage behavior. Perhaps the most all-encompassing is the feeling of lack of self-worth. So there are millions of little factors that can contribute to our feeling of unworthiness. And it would take a dozen classes to cover them. But a concept of cognitive dissonance, and this is something that I'd want you to make a note of, cognitive dissonance can help us understand more cumulatively. So, cognitive dissonance refers to the tendency that we have to seek consistency among our beliefs and our opinions. Every time something doesn't make sense, like when we hurt or surprised by an action, we feel discomfort. Our brain compensates by creating new realities that eliminate this dissonance. How does this play out in terms of self-sabotage behavior? Here's an example. Let's say you don't like someone you work with, but one day they run out to get something to drink, maybe a cup of coffee, and ask if they can grab you one, their treat. After experiencing this exchange, you have two options. Option one, you change your opinion of them. Maybe they're actually cool. Or option two, you justify your previous opinions of them. They must be up to something. I don't trust them. They will be doing this with an underlying agenda, wouldn't you think? Once you land on one of these options, though, our brains stick to it. Our beliefs is altered and strengthened based on what just occurred. Right. So, imposter syndrome. The higher up you rise, the further you have to fall. This fear of ultimately failing is another reason that we partake in self-sabotage. Our psyche is rooted in the perception that you're not deserving of the success you're gaining so far. In return, you might partake of self-sabotaging behaviors such as doing the bare minimum, procrastinating, or or deriving your attention to others in order to avoid the fear. As you progress forward through life, um, so other reasons that we might turn to self-sabotage behavior are due to familiarity and boredom. We're creatures of habit, but sometimes this means that we choose consistency over our own happiness and contentment. If we're used to being or feeling overlooked, mistreated, or exploited, it can be strongly reassuring to put ourselves in a position over and over, in this position over and over, even though we know that these roles are making us unhappy. We prefer them to be unknown. We might also turn to self-sabotage because we're bored. Sometimes we create drama and inciting conflict. It can give you a rush, or being in the middle of chaos can feel comforting. The good news is that self-sabotage follows a predictable pattern, so we can change it. We can first be aware of it and change it. So let's talk a little bit and pinpoint these patterns. Self-sabotage follows a predictable pattern. Aware of how it shows up in our lives, we help to recognize it when it does when it does show up, so that you can take action to nip it in the bud, so as to one moment. Yes, you can take some actions to nip it in the bud as soon as it shows up. The first step in this is to think back to previous times you've self-sabotaged in your life. Then figure out what points you typically began to indulge in this self-sabotaging behavior, and uncover the triggers. Now, this is where the important thing is, to be able to identify the triggers. For example, you had a crush on a colleague. Let's say, for example, you had a crush on this colleague, traveling to work, or for a month, so, and you always chatted with that person every time. One day, they ask you on a date, that you freeze and come up with an excuse to get out of it. What happened? Somewhere in the exchange, you were triggered. Perhaps as soon as your romantic interest began to show interest back, your brain didn't understand how to comprehend that new information. If your reality up until now dictates that you weren't worthy of love, but suddenly you receive information that contradicts that reality, and your brain sends signals to fight against that cognitive dissonance, or discomfort, or the new unknown, and bring you back to that familiar thought pattern. Perhaps this means that you detect and become uninterested, suddenly afraid, knowing that your relationship is moving forward and couldn't ultimately fail. Getting intimate with your fears. Now, think of self-sabotage as a misdirected form of self-love. Your brain is moving you towards self-sabotage behavior because it thinks that it's protecting you from hurt and danger, when in reality, it's also holding you back from your full potential. Fear is an emotion. Most of us prefer to sweep under the rug instead of working to confront it head on. But one step you can take is to face that inner fear head on. How you can be able to do it is journal. Next time you realize that you might be partaking in self-sabotage behavior, like procrastinating, delaying, on a particular task that you have. You can fight with a loved one. Take a moment and ask yourself, what am I scared of? Why is this scary? Then ask yourself, if that's a worst case scenario, could I handle it? Finally, ask yourself, does this fear outweigh the desire? Once you've taken these steps to actually take some time to consider the situation head on, the fear inside you loses a little bit of power over your psyche. Repeat this activity as needed in order to train your brain to ease out of those old thought patterns slowly. This is a gradual process, and this is what we need to stick to. So, facing and embracing. Comforting our fears means facing discomfort. And sometimes the truth that we uncover can be the ugly one. Let's take a look at a case study about a woman, Olga. Now, she was always in fear of losing her partner Jack. She told him all the time that she loved him and that she never wanted him to leave her, but at the same time, she kept fighting and forgetting to to stick to her promises, like picking him up from work. In order to get to the bottom of this bizarre and seamlessly contradictory behavior, Olga was prompted to contemplate the worst case scenario: Jack leaving her. Now she had never thought about that. And just before, so she was afraid and to let her mind, go that far. She was asked, "What will you do if he leaves?" And here's her response: "Well, I have to learn to live by myself. I guess I'd have to be independent to be. I guess I'd be free." So that was her response. The fear that she'd she'd been hiding wasn't that Jack secretly wanted to leave her. It was that she wanted to be independent. Once Olga came to that realization and took the time to process her thoughts instead of falling back on the old habitual fears, she realized that her definition of a perfect wife meant someone who acted um, in an appendage in a bondage relationship, you know, to her husband, a role that she didn't want to play really subconsciously because she didn't want to fulfill this role. She began doing things to self sabotage her marriage, thus leading to the fear of its end. Once she realized the root of her fears and how they played out, her actions towards Jack, how it really played out with her actions towards Jack, she was able to move past the stereotype of marriage and recognize that her role as a wife didn't have to match up to the ideas that she had in her mind. She was free to forge her own course. Recommit to new healthy goals every day. Setting small goals will make you feel more accomplished and in control of your life. This is it is a particularly helpful way to conduct self-sabotaging, to combat this self-sabotaging um, behavior, because it fights a feeling of low self-worth and keep you motivated and more forward in a positive direction. Don't be afraid to make a list. Perhaps take a moment to pick out a planner, or maybe you can just write it down on a pad or a notepad, whatever it is that you have. Write your thoughts down, or write your list down. Start with small obligations, doing the laundry or grocery shopping, or picking up food for the pets. Crossing something off the list of your to-do list, or maybe when you journal, is fulfilling in its own weird way. I promise. This is something that has worked for myself as well. So, assuming things. Don't fall into the mental trap of harmful assumptions. It is easy to spiral. It is easy to spiral out of control. It's natural to try to analyze and assess people and the situations to make sense of our surroundings. The danger lies in allowing your imagination to wander too far, leading to the worst case scenario, like Olga, which causes anxiety, frustration, and fear. Furthermore, the assumptions you make about the way people feel about you are often a reflection of how you feel about yourself. After all, you're you're getting you're getting that that harmful material from somewhere, your own self-sabotaging thoughts, perhaps. If you're feeling ignored, alone, or abused, and your first thought is, they treat me this way because, and you fill in the blank, or they must think that I'm fill in the blank. What you're actually doing is projecting your own feelings about yourself. If this behavior goes unchecked and you don't realize that you're making silly assumptions, you'll actually think your mind, you'll actually trick your mind actually into making false judgments about other people. When you start assuming negative things, you attract negative thoughts. To fix this pattern, try to catch yourself. Then distract yourself with something else that you enjoy. So, in terms of assuming things about other people, we cannot control their beliefs and their opinions. So, stop assuming. Do less. So, keep your days simple and meaningful. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed with things that aren't priority to you. And don't waste your time on things that don't really matter. Learn how to say no and start getting used to delegating duties to people around you, your family members, maybe your kids or employees at work or your team. Take time for yourself and do the things that you enjoy. Do you like cooking? Make sure you set some time aside and make yourself a nice meal, maybe once a week. Well, we're home now, so we may have some more time to do some cooking if this is something that you like. Do you enjoy spending time with animals? Maybe you should, take some time and you spend some hours, or you volunteer at the animal shelter. Do things. The main thing is that you do things that you're passionate about, are willing to keep your stress levels down and allow you to focus more on your own goals and motivation. Get an accountability partner. Surround yourself with people who are also doing their best to fight against these habits of self sabotage. If your goal is to start creating more healthy habits, but most of your friends don't have a problem sitting around, every night eating, or you're binge watching, you want to be able to find a buddy that will be able to actually help you. Maybe even going to, well, we can't go to the gym now, but that buddy that will be able to help you to, adopt those healthy habits. The point is, you don't want to be able to slip back into those unhealthy habits of the past. You have someone, to go to be inspired and to fall back, into that healthy habit that you've chosen for yourself. There will always be times when you realize that we need to let go of something painful. But, you know, you have to be able to realize and to understand, those toxic relationships as well, those toxic relationships. However, it's never easy to let go of something that we've become accustomed to. So we get stuck in the middle of two realities, where we are now and where we want to be. Fear of the unknown can hold us back, but we can choose not to let it. Acts of self love. One way to solve this problem is to accept more love into our life, which is, of course, can be difficult if you feel that you're unworthy of love. But remember that if you're always putting yourself into this destructive self-sabotaging situation, you aren't allowing yourself to expand, your worth and your reach, to be able to fulfill your potential. Since you can't control the love you receive from other people, the best place to start is self-love. Now, here's a few ways that we can practice self-love. As we previously talked about, cook your favorite meal. Don't worry about the calories. Buy yourself some flowers, sing loudly, maybe your favorite song, maybe in the bathroom, wherever it is. Treat yourself to maybe an art workshop, or maybe a movie. Take a hike. I mean, get outdoors. Probably not around people at this time, a lot of people, but take a hike. Enjoy your favorite snack. Write down some of your favorite quotes and post them on social media. You could plan a potluck with your friends, or make some art. Create some do-it-yourself projects at home. When you do something you are proud of, dwell on it a little. Relish the experience. It's not narcissistic, you know, it's an act of self care. If you confront your boss and finally ask for that promotion or give yourself props, you just give yourself props. Something difficult you've accomplished, give yourself props. You've got the guts, you were determined and you got through it. Being aware of your accomplishments will boost your mood and make you feel more self-sufficient. If we're waiting for people around us to congratulate us on our self-worth and our self-esteem, we're giving away the keys to our happiness. Because our thoughts, the thoughts, opinions, and beliefs of others are outside of our control. So it's so important that we get our thoughts of ourselves positive. The self-thought, the self-talk, our internal voice, get that positive. And that is what we can control. One of the best ways that we can practice self-care and is to break up with self-sabotage, is to take care of our physical body. If you're constantly tired, trying to research try to research some natural sleeping supplements. If you're feeling burnt out, pass on the coffee or the Red Bull. Just cut back on the caffeine after 3. If you're overweight, reassess your diet and your physical activity levels. If you have chronic pain, look into possible remedies like yoga or dietary changes. If we ignore our aches and pains, we're not putting ourselves first. We're not showing our bodies, that self-respect we deserve. Shifting years of negative self-talk to positive self-talk is a lot easier said than done, isn't it? And requires you to program your entire mind. But you can do it. Even if you think that you're not that critical of yourself, you might be surprised. Most of the time, we're unaware of that unconscious dialogue that goes on in our mind. We're all here. Here are some tricks you can use to boost positive self-talk. Those self-talk. Practice positive affirmations. These are your I am statements, or you can, positive statements such as I deserve to be happy. Everything happens for a reason. I trust my intuition. I'm worthy of love are all excellent places to start. Repeat those phrases to yourself when you sense yourself spiraling. Think of failure as an opportunity. Sometimes we think that it seems negative at the onset and actually lead to really, it may start off negative in the onset, but it's an opportunity that we can be able to achieve an awesome thing. That is the importance of, keeping positive. Sit up straight, don't slouch. Slouching is an easy way that we can make ourselves feel crummy and lazy and lethargic. Sitting up straight can make you feel more useful, awake, and thoughtful. Avoid negative people. If your neighbor is always complaining, put on your headphones and listen to some music. If you have a friend who always seems that the glass is half empty, try spending more time with people who are willing to join you on your journey to that positive outlook in life. Look at the big picture. You got a parking ticket, that's a bummer, or you got some thing on the something that affected you, and you don't get caught up with it. It won't matter in a week. Will it matter in a month? Will it matter in a year? Try not waste your time, your precious time, or your mental power on things that are out of your control. We are presently going through situations with the political situation and COVID-19. We want to be able to be positive. It will pass. It won't matter in the long run. We will get over these issues that we're facing right now. Learn to forgive yourself for your past actions and cut yourself a break. Let negative thoughts come. No, when negative thoughts creeping into your mind, stop them in their tracks and counteract them with positive thoughts. Talk to yourself and defend yourself. The way that you would protect maybe your friends, your parents, or siblings. If you start spiraling, interrupt that negativity. This might be this might literally mean walking up to the mirror and giving yourself a pep talk. How many of you do that? It's okay. Speak to yourself positively and reaffirm yourself. You say, hey, stop that. You know that all that negativity isn't helping anyone. We can't afford to put ourselves down right now because we've got too much going on for us. We've been here before and we know that this behavior isn't healthy. It may sound silly, but it's helpful because all you need is to hear the right words. And if they're coming out of your mouth, that's even better. So I want to thank you um, for taking this time, join me, and I hope that you're able to walk away with something, some insights in your mind, that will work for you. Some tactics that you can be able to overcome this self-sabotaging habits. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. I am willing to answer it to the best of my ability. And to be able to combat this self-sabotaging behavior, it's not only in relationships, it's not only in the relationships we have at home with our friends, but it's also in business. We tend to self-sabotage ourselves in business too because we have fears in business. There are relationships in business that affects us, maybe in the past, maybe now. But the important thing is to be able to catch yourself when you are, uh, when this habit is coming up. Now that you're aware of it, I trust that you can be able to, you know, pinpoint the patterns, identify the triggers, and make the necessary changes. And there are some habits that there are some things that we've been through that will be able to help you, such as journaling, and you do your to-do lists. These are things that help. The root cause of self-sabotage is fear. We need not to be making our decisions in our lives from that point. So I trust that you got some takeaways of how you can be able to combat self-sabotage. I want to thank you, and I want to, you know, wish you the best, that you can be able to move forward and don't let self-sabotage hinder your progress, hinder your long-term goals, the goals that you have set for yourself. All the best. And if you have any questions, please don't be afraid. We're all dealing with this fear, and I've done it. I've done it too. I've procrastinated in my life. So I would want to, you know, just have a discussion with you. If you have any questions, you can ask. Thank you.